Hey, what's up, Hot Nerds? Welcome back to the Hot Nerd Network, the ultimate destination where we celebrate bold personalities from the real world to the World Martial Arts Tournament. I'm Hot Nerd Syd, your guide through the wild worlds of fandom. I'm not here alone. I'm with a Survivor favorite of mine, Sifu. Hi, Sifu.
What's going on, y'all? Sifu in the building.
So excited to have you here. Sifu, we've been like a fan of yours since your season, Survivor 45. And
Yeah.
it was just so cool to see you interacting with their content. That was a dream come true. Like to hear you respond back to some of our thoughts. So had to have you on. So thank you to nerd
Love
out
it.
with us.
Love it.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just scrolling and literally saw this. I'm like, this is cool, Hot Nerd Network. And I was like, all right, I gotta interact with this.
Yes, and I'm excited. I feel like you've already kind of spoiled what we're going to talk about today. I guess the title also does too.
A little bit, yeah. This is
We're gonna be doing some fun things, mixing the Survivor universe with the Dragon Ball Z universe. Sifu, like, tell us what is your lore with Dragon Ball Z? Like, what makes you a nerd of that universe?
yeah. Well, I mean, it all started back in the day when I would run off the bus just to make it home to watch an episode because I was so obsessed. But I think it stems from just being a martial artist, and then you just kind of delve into the world of Dragon Ball Z. So there's a lot to dive into, but as far as like just the lore, I love it. It's a great story and a lot to dig into.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so much to dig into, but it's also so fun that there seems to be like some cool connections between two of your worlds. Well, actually three. Yeah, martial arts being one, Dragon Ball Z being two, but then also Survivor being three. Like I thought that was so cool that you've already been kind of thinking about how some of your Survivor castmates may have some, connections to some Dragon Ball Z
Right.
characters. Yeah. So we're going to be breaking that down a little bit today. But first, before we break down into that, why do you think that there's like this connection between Survivor and Dragon Ball Z?
I would boil it down to arcs, right? I would think that every single player on Dragon Ball Z, or sorry, every single character on Dragon Ball Z has an arc. And if
Yeah.
you look at Survivor, it's kind of a similar thing. We get thrown to the wolves. We start off very basic,
Yeah.
and then we have to figure our way through the game. So it's a very similar message in both the realities there.
That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Do you find that there's like alliances in Dragon Ball Z similar to the alliances that form in Survivor?
Oh, 100%. So that's another thing is like the Z fighters. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when they go out to tournaments or when they fight something like Cell coming in to evade the Earth. Uh, we'll get to that later. But what I'm getting at is like you have to have alliances to make it through threats and different challenges. And that's exactly what Survivor is. I mean, can you imagine going alone through the entire, like, it just doesn't work.
No.
So you at least, right, never does. So you at least need someone to get you that much further, and then you can vote him off.
Then you can be the top one.
Right,
Yes. Love it.
right.
Love it. So yeah, we're gonna dig into all the fun. What we're basically going to do is pick a Survivor player from season 45 to start out with. Sifu's gonna tell us what their Dragon Ball Z counterpart is and why he's picked that. What's their energy, their fighting style, tribe role, all of that. That's all gonna come into play. And then I'll come in with some nerdy anecdotes about their Myers Briggs and potentially their Enneagram, all their little personality studies. So that's what I nerd out about. So, are you ready to get started?
Let's get started, and I want to learn more about that, so I'm going to be listening intently. So,
Yes. Well, we've got to get started with. I mean, I feel like, is it okay if we get started with you? Like, I want
ah,
to make sure we know
sure, we could, yes,
we
we
can
could
sleep.
start with me. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So, first we have to start with secret, and this is what we're gonna do. Even before we do, I gotta tell the audience, we're gonna be using the personality database. Shout out to the personality database. This is one of our favorite sites on Hot Nerd Net, where basically whoever you think of, fictional or reality characters wise, you can look them up in here and basically find what their personality profile is. And I was very happy to show Sifu that even if he didn't realize it, people had made a profile for him on Survivor
Oh Lord,
as well too. So Sifu, people were voting and saying that you are an ESTP Myers Briggs. Like, do you have any idea what that might mean?
zero. zero. So I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's dive in. Let's see what that
Yeah,
is.
so basically the ESTP, they're called the Cavaliers. They're energetic and entertaining, thrill seekers, that sounds about right, adaptable, dynamic, and practical, easygoing, and comfortable in a variety of environments.
Hmm.
I don't know, that feels pretty accurate to me, but how do
That's
you feel?
no, that's very accurate. I think that kind of aligns with everything I did on the show and kind of who I am in real life. So
Yes, yes, and so then for yourself, you had picked Supreme Kai as who like, what draws you to Supreme Kai as a character?
yeah, so Supreme Kai is my first option. I think that the Kais in general, they're like
Yeah.
uh they look after the worlds. They kind of take care of a lot of, you know, uh the way things go, right? And
Mhm.
so they're not always in the forefront. And that's how I felt about myself in the game is like I kind of went with the flow. I did go against the grain sometimes, but they're looking over the entire thing and then they're very powerful, trained martial arts, which I relate to very well. So I just felt like the Supreme Kais for me just would be more aligned with who I am and how I played the game and also my real life. So
Absolutely, and, I wanna bring up the other you said King Kai also, right? As far
yes.
as
So this is what people would be like, no, that's right. Because because King Kai is goofy.
Yeah,
He is just hilarious, but he's also very like what's that called? Off the wall, right? And so when you
okay.
see me on episode 1 or 2, you're like, who is this Sifu guy hunting for idols, jumping around, being crazy? And so it would be very correlated with King Kai. So
I love that. Yeah, King Kai so there's, like, some connections here, even from a personality standpoint, to both of them. They
right,
both so they INFJ and ESFJs, they're both very especially ESFJs, the caretakers, and they really, care about the world around them, especially INFJs really care about the
right.
world around them. 9s and 2s as well, so they're really looking out for people, so that's really cool that it like, even just that connection piece, I feel like even
Right.
outside of Survivor, I see that of you as well too, so pretty cool stuff here, but yeah, that's how basically it's gonna go with everybody.
Love
Um,
it.
who else do you wanna start with? Who like, as far as other people from your cast?
Yeah, I say we dive in. Let's go with my boy Austin, my brother from
Oh,
another mother.
I love it. Tell
Yeah.
me about Austin and, like, how it was to be on the beach with them.
Well,
What was
first off,
your reaction?
Austin is a hunk, man. He's a beautiful man. I love that guy. But secondly, he was very calm, very focused on the game, but very supportive, which it was interesting because he would come to me sometimes and say, "Hey, this is kind of what you're putting out. We need you to cool it down, or we go this way, we go that way." So he was a player in that regard, like, and also he found an idol, and he was like, "If I don't get this idol, Sifu's gonna get this idol."
Yeah,
And with those things, you're just like, he's a game player. He's thinking ahead. He created a great alliance the Reba before. I mean, Austin's top notch Survivor player of the new era for sure.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it, and I thought it was really cool. It's interesting, they put him as an ISFP here, but I think the character profile that you've aligned him with aligns a little bit more to what I saw on the screen too, and
Right.
what you're even describing right now. Tell us, what does Austin have in common with Future Trunks?
Okay, so on my notes, I said that Future Trunks fights strategically to save his world,
Mhm.
and that's what you see from Austin. And there's more, like combining resourcefulness and loyalty, and I think Austin mirrors that, right? If you look at his connections when he made them, they were solid, and he stuck with them all the way to the very end.
Yeah.
There's some discrepancies always in Survivor, like you're gonna have that,
Mm,
but he was just mainly true to that character. And if you look at Trunks, he literally travels through time to come warn them
yeah,
about several different occasions. One being the invasion of the androids, Dr. Gero and the Red Ribbon and all that, coming to like destroy the world.
yeah,
And I know that's a grand scheme of things, but it's like a very similar idea of like, I have to tell the people I love
yeah.
and save them and see what they can do to kind of like restore hope or fight before they get here, or set up strategies. So I mean, I just see a lot of similarities.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. I feel like the Reba 4 was kind of an anomaly in the new era of Survivor. You don't really see
Right.
alliances make it that far, even just since back in the day, back in the first
Yeah,
10
back in my day.
yeah,
Right.
right. Back in the first 10, 20 seasons. Even just the first, because even after like season 10, I feel like
Right.
there wasn't that sort of loyalty it really baked into there, but they used, especially Austin used it as a real superpower of his. I know people might say that he was loyal to a fault at the end there, but I mean,
Sure.
I feel as if that's what got him to the final, the final three.
Yeah.
So,
You have to think that I mean, when I was there, I could see like we all felt like family,
yeah,
and there are deceptions there for sure. But the Reba Four, and I was even included in a few of the things that were going on, and you could just feel the connection and the love and the honesty. You know, we're all playing for the $1 million, and you know that individually. But with Austin, he was invested not in just the game, but the people
yeah,
and their stories. Like we talked about deep stuff that happened with me and with Drew and with D and everybody. Like we went through the gambit. So that's why it was like when you look at him in correlation to Trunks, I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, they're both caretaking and loving and insightful and looking out for people.
yeah.
You know.
So if you'll notice, Future Trunks has something in common with, I believe you said Supreme Kai, and it's the fact that he's an INFJ.
Mm-hmm.
INFJs are called the advocates, and they're idealists with conviction, sensitive and complex, do-gooders who uplift others. They're reserved but immensely caring, and I definitely think that gives Austin more than what
100%.
others have like labeled him as this ISFP. ISFPs are cool and everything. They're just a bit more eccentric, and I mean, Austin was cool in the sense of like, really, really focused on the sandwiches out there. I think, but like, I don't know if he was that eccentric, to be labeled ISFP. I do think what you've unlocked here with Future Trunks in his pairing with the INFJ, I see that way more. So I'm probably gonna vote on here later to change
Yeah.
this.
And let me vote too. I'd love to.
Come on, create a profile and we can change this around, okay?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so that's pretty cool. Do any other hot takes when it comes to Austin?
Hot takes when it comes to Austin. Man, he was well, I'll tell you something that's really funny, and I don't
Yeah.
think I've said this in any interview actually or anything.
Ooh, really
There
hot.
were there was a time on the first episode where we're on the barge and we're jumping over this thing and we have to, throw the bags into this thing and then we have to pull the rope and it's just crazy. And we're done pulling the rope first, and I look over at Austin, and Austin looks over at me, and I'm done. I'm tired. And I'm just like, go, go, go. And he looks at me, he's like, and he just literally did it. And we started laughing after that because, no, it was so funny because I was dead, but I was trying to play it off, and he was dead, and he was trying to play it off.
Right?
And he jumped in and untied the key. So there's just a lot of moments where Austin, like, came in the clutch and was such a good person. So I,
Well,
I respect him for sure.
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. Well, we can't talk about Austin without talking about, like, his kind of bromance out there. How about
Oh,
we
he had several
yeah,
several bromances, and Drew. Yeah, Drew is one of them for sure.
let's go. Yeah, I feel like especially I wish you were there when they did that
Oh,
montage.
the yeah the
Yes! Oh my
dun,
gosh,
dun, dun. Yeah, that was
get just a
crazy.
little bit here. No, that was just so fun. I felt like they played around with a lot of the bromances of the season. The one that they featured the most, though, was Austin and Drew. Tell us a little bit more about Drew Basile, since that was your starting tri bait.
Oh, it depends on who you're talking about. Are you talking about Basile? Are you talking about Drew?
Okay, all right.
But yeah, so I would say this one is for me. This one is hilarious because Drew can be misunderstood, right? If you watch him, if you don't understand him, but he is so sensitive and loving and caring about the people that are in his tribe.
Yeah.
He doesn't, but he can be abrasive and forward and energetic when in that regard. But when we would talk and we would hang out on the beach, he was asking me questions about my life and how's it going, and we would go hunting for crabs, and it was hilarious how good we got at that together. But
Wow.
I think Drew is one of the smartest people I've ever met, and that's why I related him to Dr. Brief.
Yes, Doctor.
And what's that?
I said, "Yes, Doctor Brief." That's so and it's crazy. They're almost one for one here as far as
Yeah. Hey, look
you
at
see
that.
that? You did that. Come on.
Hey, I love that.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So do you want to dig in first or you want me to hit it?
Please. I mean, you already have kind of touched on some things with him being one of the smartest people that you've ever
Right.
met. Please tell me more about that.
Yeah, so if you think about Dr. Brief, he's the creator of Capsule Corp. And
Mm,
Capsule Corp is all the futuristic gadgets, time travel, little capsules that can turn into cars or houses or medicine and whatever you want it to be. And so if you think about Drew's arc,
mhm.
every single puzzle that dude slayed. And
Yeah,
that is I know, and that was so paramount to our success to
yeah,
where we literally leaned on that every challenge. We're like, I'll do the physical, and you're the puzzle guy.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, so they correlate so well in those regards. But Drew is also, and that's why I say like I know him personally, so it's difficult. But he is very direct and very forward when he knows what he's doing,
yeah.
and he's very knowledgeable and well spoken, and that's the same thing as Doctor Brief. So I just think they're twins at this point,
Yes. No,
and they kind of look similar. One's
they
just a little bit
do.
older.
Look at
Yeah,
this. That's going to be Drew soon,
yeah, that's
okay?
gonna be Drew in the next 20 something years, right there.
If we could just develop that mustache there, I feel like it's gonna be
I,
carbon copy.
Drew, let's get a mustache, man. I think you can do it. Come on.
You can rock it. Dr. Brief has already showed you the way. I love this though. I love how it's kind of spot on. I think back in the day, but without knowing or seeing Drew, I've seen Drew on like a lot of Rob has a podcast where I think we
Right.
got to see another side of him than like the show was showing us. The show was really showing us the very austere, very stoic side of
Right.
Drew. But yeah, I can definitely see his more personable traits that I'm sure you saw on the island. And I think this kind
100%.
of this kind of correlates to that because before I won't show you that, but I had notes on all of you all like what your personalities were going through the season. And I had labeled him as an INTJ, which can be a little bit not colder. I think colder is the wrong
Sure.
word, but just a little bit more stoic than even the INTP. INTPs are called the intellectual, which is so cool. That you're smart, smart. Okay, guess what? The first word for INTPs are puzzle solvers. I didn't make that
No
up.
way.
I didn't
What?
make that up. Okay, puzzle solvers
That's
with a
crazy.
flair of inventiveness. Sorry, what are you gonna say?
No, I was just saying that's crazy. Let's
It's
go.
crazy, right? I couldn't have aligned that more. They're introverted ideas people, they're analytical, need intellectual challenges to feel really fulfilled. And I do find that of Drew. But the P there versus the J versus like the INTJ means that they're a bit more fluid. They're a bit more malleable than like
Mm,
just like it has to be my way or the highway, you know?
right. Right.
And I really appreciate you just kind of like uncovering a bit more of the Drew there versus the Basile. I love
Right.
that they also have the 5 here. They have Dr. Brief leaning more 5 wing 4, Drew leaning 5 wing 6.
Okay.
Basically, 5s are in Enneagram lore the investigators. They're going to like really take everything like as far as dealing with the emotion of fear, they're going to deal with the emotion of fear by trying to um come up with a bunch of different strategies that lean on their intellect, lean on their past knowledge of things, their past learnings of things. That is how they deal with it. On the flip side of them, though, you have 4, which is where Dr. Brief leads, which is a little bit more towards the inventiveness and the wanting to really stand out, whereas 6s lean more towards their people. And what I'm hearing, even from a Drew perspective, is that
Right.
he, you know, even though he was very intellectual, he did lean in towards his people. You can see that in so many ways, even on camera. But
Yeah.
yeah, what are your thoughts?
Even the moment that you said you wish I was there, like when they did the boys' night out, that was Drew out of his normal shell, just really having a good time, leaning into that moment, and that's aligned perfectly. So,
Yes, perfect.
man,
Yeah, I love that this was so aligned with what the viewers thought of him. Um,
right, spot on.
Yes. All right, so we gotta move on to, what our one returnee of the newest era. Let's talk about
Yes.
Bruce.
Let's talk about Bruce. So pregame, before we got started, I saw this bald head in a mask, and I was,
Not the
I was,
bald head.
it was shiny too, because that Fijian sun, man. And I was like, that guy looks familiar,
Yeah,
but I just couldn't put my finger on it. And then we get on the barge, and it's Bruce, and I'm like, oh my gosh, returning from season 44.
yeah,
So yeah, you know, I think everybody would kind of agree with this, but I'm interested to see what your scale says. But I say Piccolo. I
yeah,
say Piccolo. I do, and I know there's some similarities because Piccolo's a mentor type.
yeah,
He takes on Gohan, which is Goku's son,
mhm,
and just trains him and teaches him. But Piccolo's very knowledgeable and is not afraid to say his way, and what
yeah,
how it's done, how it's supposed to be done. And that's kind of like Bruce. It's like I want things done this way. I want to get it done.
yeah,
And this is how it's done. If you look at him and Tora, you'll see that kind of like back and forth, you
period.
know, dad mode versus, you get it. But
Yeah,
uh yeah, but he also like as far as Piccolo goes, is very, very resourceful and powerful and can regenerate himself.
yeah,
And
yeah.
look at Bruce
Wow.
regenerated himself to season 45.
Exact that literally,
Yeah,
literally, he was able he's the one person who has been able to do that, so,
right.
yeah. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's so interesting here, right? What you describe is very much giving where I would say Bruce has been typed as. So the ESTJs, they're called the directors. And it's so funny. I know this
Hmm.
type very well because my dad is an ESTJ and Bruce gave my dad so much on the island. Like I was like, am I looking? And my dad is bald too. So it was just
Oh,
like
it's like,
very
is that father? Yeah.
have my dad out there,
Right,
and he just brings those vibes. ESTJs are called the director. They're strong-willed. They're principled leaders. They embrace order, directness, and honesty. I felt like he was trying to lead such an honest game. Um,
right,
and they're organized and they're reliable. Like I think Bruce just wanted to be like I think he was trying to give kind of that Reba loyalty vibes.
right.
On and I'm missing his tribe name right now, but
Bella,
yes,
Bella.
Bella.
Yeah,
And I really felt like he was trying to bring that. It's just Bella was not on the same wavelength at all.
no,
They were like, no, we're going for each other a little bit more, which always is like a part of Survivor. Like depending on the tribe culture you ended up with, could things have ended up a little bit differently?
right.
I don't know, but I do agree a bit more than with, the INTJ side. I mean, the
Sure,
INTJ I agree with you with Piccolo, though. I think that that's very much Bruce vibes if we're thinking about DBZ comparisons, but
sure.
INTJs, I'll read you a little bit more about them. They're like the architects, and their
Oh,
intellects
okay.
they're intellects, they're perfectionists who tend to focus inward. They're planners with a desire to always keep understanding all aspects of life. They're logical and devoted. It's very similar, right? I just think that at least from an outward perspective, I'm very biased because he reminds me of my dad.
Oh,
I
I love it.
the ESTJ side. So yeah, but I see the Piccolo comparisons, especially when we talk about the regeneration,
Right,
and especially when you're talking about just the leader and the directness of
right.
both. Like it's just the motivations are what are differing here, as far as their personalities go.
Yeah, I agree. I can agree with that because, and again, Piccolo is a father figure throughout the whole entire
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball. Well, not Dragon Ball, but Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super. He was a villain in Dragon Ball, but
Yeah.
uh, but yeah. So I think that you're correct in that. But with Piccolo moving forward, and Bruce moving forward, like they do have their arc starts to meet each other. So Bruce does become self-aware, super self-aware in one of the episodes, and he actually in a confessional was like, maybe I do need to go home and talk to my daughters and my wife and see, am I overbearing to them? Am I too much? That was a self-reflecting moment, I think, really kind of like, I don't know how linear these are, but I think that was something that really took him in a different path. Is
Yeah.
when he started to self-reflect and do that. So, and then Piccolo does the same thing where he kind of goes through that sort of similar arc. So, I don't know. I like it. I think it's a good balance.
I think so too,
Yeah.
and I feel like this is like we could see Bruce. We saw Bruce at one part of his arc, and of course, like we saw an arc come through. But I wouldn't mind getting Bruce back a third time to see how after
Really?
conversations like that kind of went. So yeah, he was a pretty interesting character.
I love Bruce. I think he should come back to season
Yeah,
50. I think
come
that'd be
on,
good.
season 50, Sifu.
Yeah.
Do you have any hot takes on season 50? Are you gonna be on there? I'm
Whoa,
gonna
whoa, whoa! Hold on. Where's the NDAs at?
No spoilers here.
Yep,
We know
never that.
nothing. We know nothing. But all
Never
right.
that.
So anything else on Bruce, or should we move on to another fan fave?
Yeah, let's let's hit it, man. Because this one was fun for me. Whenever I was going through this, I was like, "Oh my gosh, what a perfect character matching!" So now this makes me so intrigued to see from your perspective to see what you
Yeah.
have and if it lines up.
Yeah, let's see. This is so it does, it's just like small things that are changed by it. But what was your take on Emily Flippin as far as
Okay.
who she was as a character? Mhm.
All right, so being there on the barge,
Mhm.
first day, she calls Bruce out, and everybody's looking. I mean, could have broke your neck looking over there. Well, let me push back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is day one, and that right there showed me this. We're game on, and she's like firing back, and I
Moving.
didn't think in that moment she
Yep.
realized that everybody's kind of like judging her or thinking about what she said, or man. And then I was like, oh my God, Android 18. Because Android 18 is very stoic, very forward, very like direct, and doesn't have that social awareness.
Mhm.
Emily has a lot more than Android 18, but Android 18 didn't have that social awareness, but then she becomes a human being and
Yeah.
like starts to really flip her story, and that's a flip her story flipping,
Flip it.
and that's and that's exactly what Emily did. She, the financial analyst, killed it and flipped her story, became human, and
Yeah.
started listening more and asking questions and realizing her faults.
Mhm.
That is partially owed to Caleb too for kind of like jumping in, but it was like, man, 18 and Emily are just right on. So
They
what
are.
are you seeing on your end?
I completely agree with this. As far
Yeah.
as looking at the whole character, one thing to note here is that when we're taking in all of these different types of personality traits, they're kind of at different conscious levels of ourselves. Like the super outer persona to the inner persona is what's like showcased here. And the one type we've been talking about, Myers Briggs, it's like one of the facets of the outer personas, but it's not the only facet. We can look
Right.
at other things. And even then, though, we'll talk about that first before we dig into other ones. We have Emily here as the INTJ. I do think that's only taking in the first Emily that we see, not
Right.
the full character arc. Because yeah, the first Emily that we see, very direct, very
Yeah.
impersonable in a sense. I know my first my first I even if I'm looking back at some of the videos that I had on her, I was like, who is this Emily character? Great TV, team TV for sure. But
Right.
I just like I felt like I had her pinned down at first, but then, like you said, you see this beautiful character arc blossom. I'm so happy she was not voted out the first tribal council,
I
because
know.
what a like loss that would have been for us on Team TV.
I
Um,
know.
and we just got to see what you describe here for Android 18, just this full season arc. Like, even I mean, I would love to have her back, but even if we did it, I feel like we got such a great story from
Right.
Emily and how that even materialized in her game. I mean, the storytellers of Survivor are just so cool. And so I
Yeah.
would tend to put her more on the ISTP, and that's I'll read that to you. It's called the crafts person. They're
Okay.
independent and individualistic types who value personal time and spontaneity. I love the moment where Emily was going in on her tribe, talking about the where the pyramids came from. That was so funny. She was like, "I don't mesh with anybody here. It's kind of crazy." But that's
Yeah.
very much an ISTP's first like instinct. Highly practical yet flexible. And I do believe she showed that flexibility, more flexibility than what the J gives her on the INTJ side. Um,
Okay.
They're curious about the world, pay attention to details and facts, which is all Emily all day long.
Spot on.
What I love about what does correlate here, what the fans got right on both ends, because this is all fan voted, as you can see, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the choleric melancholic, we haven't talked about this with any of the others, but she has this on her profile, so we will. This is going to be referring to temperaments, and temperaments
Mm.
are like a little bit of a layer down from Myers-Briggs, and it's basically just talking about like what what temper do you kind of take with the world, that you bring to it. And when we're mixing, there's four temperaments. She has two here: choleric,
Oh,
melancholic. This means somebody who's like analytical, decisive, detail oriented, and visionary, with strengths and goal orientation, creativity, and organization.
perfect.
But they might have potential weaknesses and perfectionism and overthinking. And I think Emily
That
even called
is
it out for
spot
herself.
on.
She's like, I'm thinking too much about this sometimes.
Yes, yes. There
So,
was a time where it was a gosh, I can't remember which vote it was, but I think they came back from voting Brandon out,
mm,
and she was like, "Oh, wait, there was only X amount of votes," and Caleb's like, "Stop talking," like you know what I mean, like giving her those eyes because she had started to build that relationship back up with
yes,
Sabaya, and they were starting to kind of be cool, and she
yeah.
is going back down that route. So that I mean, that just makes so much sense.
It does, it
Yeah,
does. So I love it. I think this is like another one kind of very similar to how spot on Austin's was. I really I know this is shown to the fan votes, but I agree with what you're saying from a, like the
yeah,
18's arc here. So yeah,
love
thanks for
it,
the comparison. Um,
love it.
cool. So now we gotta move on to our winner. Is she the most dominant winner of the new era? Who knows? What's your
so
take here?
So D, yeah, man, she was a just a powerhouse, right? Had very, very subtle game in the beginning, just kind of like putting herself in the right place, right time, doing the right things. But then you could definitely see that everything she did was intentional, and she placed herself very well. Um, from the Dragon Ball Z fans, I'll get a laugh from when you show the yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, now listen, guys. Hold on before you go there. Now listen. Frieza has a beautiful arc. All right, I know beautiful's never really matched with Frieza, but this is who I think D resembles the most.
Mhm.
Now, do you want me to go in or you want to hit it?
Please, please, I would love to hear.
All right, so I will actually go to my notes real quick. So
Yeah, please.
on my reason, I said master manipulator with a long arc. Frieza's deceptive power matches D's cutthroat game.
Yes.
Through both occasionally align with good for survival. And this is so
Mhm.
true for both of them.
Yes.
And so if you look at Frieza, Frieza is a tyrant and starts off a little bit like trying to figure out how to take over worlds and exploding worlds and selling different worlds and all this stuff. And so when you look at Frieza, though, you don't see that. It's kind of a tiny frame, a small individual. And that's what I see from D. And that's why I related them because inside of Frieza is this mastermind, this person that's really smart and what's that called? Engaging.
Yeah.
And D is the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you look at it from a Dragon Ball Z perspective, yes, Frieza's more like I mean, he kills people, right? So and destroys
Lawful
worlds.
evil. Mhm.
What's that?
Lawful evil, that's, has a
Yeah.
different alignment character-wise, but still, we can look at other
Right.
personality traits. Mhm.
Exactly. And I think that when you think about the the like merge and then past
Mhm.
then, for me, that's whenever Frieza goes to hell, is asked back to help out with the universe fight,
Yeah,
because Universe 6 and Universe 7 have to fight, and he says yes.
yeah.
And that means that now Frieza's working as a team to get to the end result of this universe fight, this tournament. Sorry, the tournament against the universes, and Frieza helps out, and Frieza is literally the reason that they win the tournament, and D wins Survivor. So it's like I could relate them so well together because there is depth to Frieza as much as you don't want to believe it. There
Yeah,
is depth in a long arc, not a short arc, and it's the same thing. D had a long journey through
oh,
this
yeah.
game, and that's the same thing. So, and it took a long time for Frieza to get good. So,
That's fine. No, one thing I love about the personality world is that, you can really isolate certain characteristics, and then it becomes a whole new ball game. Like,
Right.
I think sometimes when people wanna explore themselves, they always wanna, like, align themselves to, like, good characters, but it's like, you can some of my favorite characters to really think about myself through are anti-heroes or even
Right.
villains, because if you just take off, like, okay, one person that I feel I don't know, have you ever seen Ozark before? I don't know, that's
Yeah.
such
Oh, Marty Bird. Yeah.
I
Love it.
really like, as much as, probably is not the best person to align myself with, but Wendy Bird, I could see so much of myself in, even
I,
though come on,
I
she's
agree. I agree. Yeah.
in certain aspects, but, like, if you take out that evil part of it, then you can really look and see and be, like, quite honest with, like, how this person's moving through the
100%.
world, you know? And so I can completely see Frieza, and honestly, I do think that Frieza makes more sense than what the fans have voted D to be here, because the ESFP pretty much, like, describes, I think, what D was trying to come off as to her tribe mates initially. But, like, under all of that, like, under all the guys, like, the funniness, the long toes, all of that,
Right.
craziness, there's actually, like, a lot of strategy working under, and we got to see that in confessionals, but, like, I feel like people were picking up on that as much until, we got to the merge and we got to see, like, how her votes were aligning. You
Right.
can tell me that too, but that's at least what it seemed like from, a character perspective. Like, she has this kind of, this guise to her, which might be more ESFP leading. ESFPs are like the stars. They're just entertainers and stuff.
Right.
But, like, D, I think even more than that, and what I would probably peg her as is an ENTJ. ENTJs, I'll read this, are called the commanders. They're visionaries and leaders. They're confident and commanding, strong sense of self, very strong
Yeah.
sense of self. She had such, I'll say it again, strong sense of self. I think she always knew how she wanted to approach the game and tried to mold the game in the way that she saw fit. And they're successful and dedicated. And I
Right.
think that, like, she just always so ENTJ, if I can nerd out even a little bit more here, I'm gonna pull this over, but they have like I'm gonna put this over here. They have different stacks and function stacks. This is the if you ever want to look a little bit deeper into Myers-Briggs, there's just these different functions, and the functions are broken down here. For ENTJ, their dominant function, which is like the hero function, the one that they hone in on the most, is extroverted thinking. It's order, and they're able to somehow, some way organize people around them, not even really by force, but by influence. And
Right.
I really felt like that's what made her such a commanding winner.
I
It was
could. Yeah.
just like happen chance, or at least it wasn't like formatted that way. It was very much formatted in a way where she was like creating the structures that she wanted to make, and she was working with chaos. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. 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 She definitely was.
Come on, things were changing all the time, but it just felt like she was giving herself options even by the end there. Like, it's like she didn't have to go with the Reba 4 if she didn't want to. There was other outlets for her, but people were starting it's so crazy. Nobody wanted to listen to, oh my gosh, not me forgetting very quickly, Jake. The people didn't want to listen to Jake initially, and, like, people were clocking D, but, like, she still had so many options around her. I think that correlates to Frieza as well too. So,
Right.
I am all for what you have here for Frieza.
Yeah, I mean, Frieza has a pinpointed mission the whole time, and that's the same thing as D.
Mhm.
Like, I just, I just think, and Frieza is ridiculously strong, and D is ridiculously strong. She's short and small a little bit, but she's got a lot of muscle. She's strong mentally and strong physically. I mean, her up there on the pole. I mean, I know we can laugh about the toe, but I mean, seriously, she was holding on for long time. That is incredibly hard.
It is. It
Yeah.
really is, and
And shout out to Kelly too for keeping up because that was killer.
it was. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't imagine what it's like to just even see them in person. Even just, like, going back to the most recent, I think it was, like, this week's Survivor 48, and, like,
Yeah.
just seeing records being broken and things like that. Like, I can't imagine, like, what it's like to just watch something like that, like, watch D make that sort of feat. No pun intended. But, I think what's interesting here, what the fans kinda pick up on too, is this three-way two. This is similar, to the 3 that we have here in Frieza. It's gonna be somebody who keeps their eye on the literal prize, on, like, just wanting to,
Facts.
just, like, wanting to be very successful, at whatever they're doing. I don't think at least I didn't see her ever lose sight of that, and again, like, in comparison to, like, let's say, an Austin who might have been quote unquote loyal to a fault, that wasn't going to be D,
Right. No, she was going to use that against him or anybody. Doesn't even matter if it was Austin. Anybody.
anybody. So it's that, like, where you find Austin is an I and FJ, F meaning feeler. You have the thinker here in D with her and the T.
Right.
So I love the comparison. I think it's way more accurate than what the fans were voting for in my
Yes. Let's go.
yes. Okay.
Good. Good.
Who's next? Who's next? We was
Brandon.
Brandon.
Brandon. Brandon.
Love Brandon
I
Donald.
had so much fun with this one, and I'll be brief-ish with this, but I
Cool.
think Brandon reminds me of Yajirobe.
Okay.
And it's so funny because Yajirobe is actually that he is wanting to be a hero type and all that stuff, but he's a young samurai,
Yeah.
right? And he just kind of just didn't catch his footing with the Z Warriors and with the Super Saiyans and all this, and even like people like Krillin or Master Roshi and them, like he just never caught his footing to be a part of the entire group or whatever. So, but he always tried. And I didn't put it on there, but there was one moment where Yajirobe made a big move,
Yeah.
right? And he cut off Vegeta's tail,
Wow.
which whenever Vegeta was a massive ape, it brought him back down to the regular Saiyan. And that changed the whole course of the history for, the next phase of that. But I think Brandon did that for himself,
Yeah.
right? I think he did that. I think him showing up, knowing that this is going to be such a hard adventure, he not only inspired like people around him, but he inspired those at home as well. A super fan now out there on the island, and he's been applying for years and years. So that was like a great move,
Yeah, no.
and he wants to be a part of the tribe. That's what Yajirobe wants to be a part of. He's trying to fit in and work through that. So I think that. It just made sense. I mean, he's got a raw heart, is what I put down,
Yeah.
raw power, and that power is not necessarily strength, but it is heart.
Yeah.
And I also put sometimes attempting the impossible.
Mm.
Right? He's out there.
Yeah.
I he may not have thought he was going to win Survivor, or he may have, who knows? But he knew that it's going to be the most challenging thing of his life, and he showed up. Same thing with Yajirobe. Whenever he is in the battles, yes, he's running around on the outside usually, but he tries to find an opening where he can.
Yes, I love that, and I think
Yeah.
that, like, that's so resonant to what Brandon represents. I think the what ties them the most here is going to be their Enneagram, 'cause I do agree more with the fans on the
Okay.
Myers-Briggs side, but on the Enneagram side, you see that Brandon has a 6 wing 7, Yajirobe is a 6 in his mind type too, so, like, 9 anything like 8, 9, and 1, that's body, 9 sorry 5 6 7 is mind, and 3 4 2 or 2 3 4 is heart. And so even when you're thinking about Enneagram as far as like putting together somebody's type, thinking about their heart type, their mind type, and their
Sure.
body type, we can always look at this kind of trifecta of numbers. And Yajirobe also has 6 in his trifecta, and basically sixes are we can think about them as like six packs. They like to have friends. They like to
Right.
be a part of a tribe, and they are trying to move through this world with structure, with plan A, B, C, and D's. And I think that you could see that in Brandon's game too.
Oh,
Six is
100%.
also like the mind type, what they deal with the most is fear. And this is going back to like what we were talking about with Drew. Drew handles fear in a different way than Brandon does. You know, Drew
Yes.
handles it with like intellect and all these plans and just all of these calculations.
Right.
Whereas Brandon, you know, he wants to like rely. I thought it was so cool that even when he was having that anxiety moment, that he was trying to rely on someone to like talk through that with himself, and that just feels so resonant to me.
Right.
His Myers-Briggs here is similar to mine. He's an ENFP, and I saw that on the island, and I actually it's so crazy. I'm an ENFP 6 week 7, so I am Brandon,
Oh.
which is
Oh wow. Okay. You guys are twinning right now.
a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're called the campaigners, and they're enthusiastic and empathetic to everyone around them, passionate and intense in relationships and friendships, magnetic creatives who like to forge their own paths. I think Brandon was just such a super fan out there, and
Yeah.
I could definitely see what you're talking about with Yajirobe as far as like his like what his arc wound up being on the show. It could have been
Right.
so many different things, but I definitely agree that it fits what Yajirobe meant to the DBZ universe.
And that's it. What
Yeah.
he meant to it, right? So there might be some differences for sure, but I think Yajirobe and Brandon are one of the same in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Uh, Brandon is just like like outside of the show is
Yeah.
just a great person,
Yeah.
and like
You could tell.
I I think if anyone that's watching, if you want the best laugh, go to Brandon's Twitter and just follow his Twitter. It's crazy, and he's the quickest in the West
Yeah.
at firing off the funniest things ever. So
Yeah. One of my favorite fan moments postseason for him was him, D, and I'm forgetting who, maybe it was Kelly. They had
okay.
done like a Halloween costume.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it was Kelly, and it was like Charlie, Kinsey, and someone else. Yeah, it's
It was
hilarious.
perfect. I loved
Yes.
it, and I love him on Club Condo with Rob Has a Podcast.
Oh
Shout
yeah.
out to him on that too. So love Brandon Down. Glad we got him, and he's just such a special part of the fan community now too. So
100%.
yes, should we move on to
Yes.
one of my? So this was actually Kendra is who I starting out thought myself to be the most like the eccentric, just like flowy
Yes.
piece. But I think what you have here for her is very, very cool. So, like, please tell
Yeah.
us what you have here. Mhm.
Yeah. So launch, man, is so I'll go by what I said. So launch, dual personality, sweet versus chaotic, and whenever I say chaotic, you can't put that always to a negative connotation. I
Oh,
think just kind of like thinking sporadic and off the
yeah.
wall. Like we were literally dancing with the stick bug, and like she's over there kind of twerking. So it's like. I'm like, how do you do that? Because her personality is just that. So
Yeah.
and I said this aligns with Kendra's unpredictability and unpredictable energy, and her sunny and fireness. So that is, I mean, launch is there's a good and bad launch. You've got bad launch, and
Bad launch, and then we have good launch over here too. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So I'm glad you had those two pulled up because I didn't list it out. But yeah, and so you get to both characters, and I think that's what Kendra is because Kendra will literally read your tarot cards and she'll read your energy, but she'll also be about that life if
Yeah.
you cross her. You know what
Oh,
I mean? And then she'll also be the partier. Like there's a video of me and Kendra just dancing and hanging out, and
yeah.
I'm just like, she's so wild but
Yes.
also put together and balanced.
Yes.
Launches the perfect character. And,
Yes.
and for anyone that's watching that knows Dragon Ball Z, I don't even need to say much about Launch. You guys know that she is just loony bins, but also the
Uh,
good. But the good Launch is sweet and unforgiving and beautiful, and so I don't know. It makes sense.
it does. I love what you were talking about though. Before we dive into the Myers-Briggs, just about the character alignment. Character alignment, by the way, comes from Dungeons and Dragons. That's like the
Okay.
personality, like it where it comes from, where we're looking at like lawful good versus chaotic neutral. And I feel like the blend that you have here, if we were to put there for Kendra, is like this chaotic good character that has like neutral tendencies, but can be like you said about that life, that's kind of like the lawful piece coming into.
Right.
When we're thinking about it, like chaotic people, they act according to their own consciousness, or
Yeah.
and they often value personal liberty over everything else, and may or may not consider the consequences of their actions for themselves or for others. So it's not a bad thing. You can have a chaotic good, you can have a chaotic bad, you can have a
Right.
chaotic neutral. It's just it's I love that you identify that. It's just still chaotic. So I got that from Kendra, and I also got what you're talking about too, as far as it's funny here. She would probably be more correlated with the bad launch. With her ESFP is so similar to the ESTP. It's just more
Oh, okay,
feeling
I see that.
based.
The
You know,
F and the T are okay.
are flipped. T
Yeah,
is more
flipped.
thinking. And what is so cool, what actually connects the two together is that they both, I believe, let me just check it before I say anything. SE and then ESFP is also SE. So they both, if you look very closely here, both ESTPs and ESFPs, which is what Kendra was showing here, they have the dominant function of SE, which is extroverted sensing. And
Mm.
extroverted sensing is all about enjoyment in life. It's about
Yeah.
like just like the physical sensations of the world. And they're seeking like intensity, excitement. They move through the world with interaction. It very much gives Kendra. And I think
100%.
that, I think in her quieter moments, especially when we see her connected with people, she definitely does get ISFJ. Shout out to the crew behind us. That's Durartu's type as an ISFJ Myers.
Hey.
And that's like a very more like caring, more reserved, but very much for the people type of Myers Briggs, and you can see those qualities in Kendra too. I just think it takes you getting to know her a layer under
Right.
to get to that space. But the seven in because it can be flipped here. Is this her core would be a seven, meaning she's a part of the mind tribe. How she deals with fear is going to be different than how Drew and how Brandon deal with fear. Instead of like wanting to like analyze fear or wanting to like rely on others with fear. She'll attack fear head on, like she'll just
Head
like
on, man.
balls to the walls, like just like
Yes.
let's go for it. I feel like that does give. And Bad Launch, like she has that wing seven, and they're kind of like winged that way. This is such a great, like nice new
Yeah, it
comparison.
makes so much sense, and I was so
Mhm.
happy like to think. I actually at first I couldn't. I actually skipped Kendra because I was like, man, who can I find who relates? And then just for some reason, Launch came in my head, and I was like, oh, boom, that's it.
Right. I,
So
I love it.
love it, love
Cool.
it.
Let's
I
move on to
think
okay.
next we got
Yeah, we have
Mitch,
Jake. He's one of my faves from the
Mr.
season. But ever
Jake.
since you, I was like, okay, you, Jake, and I would say Emily were all team TV for me. Okay,
Hey, we
we are
love it.
getting
We love
great
it.
content from these people. Sorry, I know Jake was having like a Charlie Brown experience out there, but
Right.
still to our enjoyment. What do you have to say about Jake?
Yeah, I mean, Jake, I love Jake, and he's one of my, I mean, good friends. We all keep in contact in one way or another, but Jake is a really good guy, and I wrote down Yamcha, which is so great.
Yes.
Underdog are constantly underestimated but persistent, and that is Jake to a T. Fits Jake's scrappy gameplay and never quit attitude, and
Yeah.
that's literally like verbatim how he played out there. Um, I said down but never out, Wolfgang fist, right? And so when it comes to Jake, he was there the whole game. I mean, he was there the whole game and gave it his all, and never was. I mean, yes, we all have our moments for sure, but he never was like, oh, down and out. He's like, no, I'm just gonna swerve and I'm gonna go
Right.
this way. That's exactly what Yamcha has to do throughout the entire series
Oh
of
yeah.
Dragon Ball Z. But yeah, it just makes sense. I don't know how close they are, but let's
They
see.
close. They're pretty close. So we can see here that like the ESFP versus the ENFP, the only difference here is going to be the S and the N. N is going to be very much like intuition based, versus S is going to be like we were just talking about with Kendra, very sensing based, like in of the world. Intuition is kind of like more in your head, and so
Right.
I can see that for Drake. But other than that, they're very similar. Extroverted feelers, and they're a little bit more limbic. They're a little bit more valuable, trying
Right.
to like make it through the world. Where they are the exact same is going to be the seven wing six. And we get that seven type with Kendra as well, which is just so fun. People that are going to like again when we're thinking about fear, even with Jake, I felt like yes, we
Right.
did get very introspective moments where he might have even spiraled a bit, but he always was coming back with a plan. He was not
Every time.
down and out. He kept the enthusiasm, and that's what they're called. They're called the enthusiasts.
Right.
They are off there. They want to. They're mostly extroverted, mostly optimistic, very versatile, very spontaneous, playful, high
Right.
spirited, but can be practical. And can sometimes become overextended, a little scattered, a little undisciplined. So I think we saw all sides of Jake. We got the chance to see that all the way up to the end, and
Right.
even I mean, even down to the tri type, they have him pegged. Bar for bar, tri type wise, he's a 3 like D, keeping his eye on the prize,
Yep.
a 9, which is very similar to a lot of I mean, what we even saw for you, Austin, Peacemakers, um,
Right.
but then the 7 piece as well too, so they are very, very similar here.
So what was interesting is the, the thing that drew me to Jake and Yamcha is actually the fact that Yamcha's a baseball player
Yeah,
and Jake is a lawyer.
yeah,
And Jake never tried to hide that, and Yamcha never tried to hide him being like a professional baseball player. And I just randomly thought of that, and then I started digging deeper into it, and I was like, oh, well, they're perfect for each other,
yes,
and also other things align as well. But yeah, there was a there was a time where Jake literally had a breakdown and he started talking about his body and how he was working through that. And I just felt so empowered by that because a lot of people I train and I work with in martial arts and fitness and stuff, they go through that stuff.
yeah,
And it was powerful to see a man talk about it. It was also powerful that they shared that on the show. And again, with Yamcha, he kind of feels the same discouragement, a big discouragement. I'm never invited to the team. I'm never invited to the fights, but
right.
he always tries to find a way to get himself there. He doesn't make it to all of them, but he does. You know, he definitely is a fighter. So
He is. I think that's so resonant to Jake's
yeah,
art, and, it was fun to see on screen. I got the same enjoyment from Jake that I got from, Owen, like, I think this season or 2 before, and
oh,
it's just like,
love Owen.
just like like you said, he keeps trying, he's so authentic to who he is,
Yes.
and that is a 7, like, 7s cannot hide, very similar to Kendra, cannot hide their true personalities, they're just gonna give you who they are, and you're gonna take it for what it is, so love, love, love. He's the one difference in him and Kendra is he wings with 6 versus her winging with 8. The 6s are more the entertainer types versus 8s are more like the realists,
I can
and
see that.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just love Jake, I
Like
don't
Kendra told me she was living off the land. I'm like, that's I love that. I love that.
I love her. I would love to see her in real life, give her a big hug, and thank
Yes.
you. So,
Yes.
really cool stuff here. Who do we got? We have Julie next.
Mama J.
Mama J, man, she really surprised me
Yeah.
as a viewer. I was not expecting her to have the arc that she had. What were your thoughts about your original tribe mate, Julie?
So Mama J to me was my mom out there, and she was my alliance member. They did not highlight it because there's a lot of stories with Lulu and other things going on in the beginning.
Yeah,
And Mama J would literally rein me in. We'd get firewood every night. We'd go out to the beach every night and talk. Yeah, we had a great relationship. And many different times where she was like, "Hey, this is what's going on," and no, and wouldn't tell anyone else, but tell me.
yeah.
Uh, which is nice. But I pegged her as Chi Chi, which
Ooh,
is well. And funny enough, my dog might come in the room because that's my dog's name. So
hey,
so I
Chi.
don't. So hopefully I don't have to say it too many times. But yeah, I pegged her as Chi Chi, and it's because fierce protectiveness, especially a family. If you look at how love, I mean, her and Dee were. You would think they were sisters out there. Like
Yeah,
that's how connected they became. And if you look at the final tribal. Where Mama J knows she has to twist that knife and
yeah,
say, hey, actually, Austin, I kept this from you intentionally.
yeah,
That was the moment where it's like I knew they were ride or die, and that's what Chi Chi is.
yeah.
She will. she's mama bear mode, and she
Mhm.
will protect her cubs. She will never ever. I mean, she even is mean to her own husband, Goku. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
like, come
Where
on.
it's like, Gohan needs to study. You're not
Yeah,
going anywhere. You
right.
know, and so you get her so connected to her tribe and so connected to her inner circle, and that's what Chi Chi is. And you notice that if you think about Chi Chi, she's not like everywhere all the time like Bulma is. Bulma has met a lot of the different fighters and the different people.
Oh,
Chi Chi
yeah,
just sticks to her tribe, or she'll go out and get somebody if they've been gone too long and come right back home.
exactly.
Um, but yeah, I think there's a great correlation for sure. And Julie, which I always say Mama J, is just a first class human being. I love her to death.
She really is.
Yeah.
As a fan, I had been, you look at the cast and you want to look at and see like what archetypes are amongst this cast, and
Right.
I just felt like for some time there, the mom archetype
Sure.
hadn't been given the storyline, not given, but I guess we hadn't
I get
gotten
what you're saying.
the storyline that we had gotten in previous time periods. Like, I think of one of my favorite people that aligns with that archetype is Carolyn Rivera, I
Yep.
think her name is. I
Yep.
gotta look her up, but she was from
Or
Heroes.
are
No,
you
no, no,
talking about 44, Carolyn? Or are you talking about Mama C?
no. Mama C, is that her? Her name's Carolyn, right? Mama C from Mike's season. What was
Yeah.
that called? It was like the red, white, and blue season, and I can't
Can't think
even.
of her last name, but I here. I think I know who you're talking
I'm
about.
about to like look her
We
up.
just we just call her Mama C, but
Yes, you know what I'm talking about, though.
yeah,
Sense of what was that's gonna kill me. It wasn't Heroes Hustlers.
Carolyn Riviera, and it was
Oh,
what was.
collars, blue collar, white collar,
Oh,
no.
that's it. Yep, I just pulled it up. So you're right.
There we go.
Uh,
Her, like, she Mama C
yeah,
from that season, she was my last, like, wow, really liked her, and I actually
mom
really
type.
liked
Yeah,
Chrissy from Heroes, Hustlers, Heroes. We got a lot more of the Julies of the world in that era of Survivor, and
yeah,
I feel like Julie really brought that back where it's like, you have someone who's using that sort of energy that she has in life to make it through the game authentically, but also very strategically.
right.
And I really, really appreciated Julie for that. And she was just a challenge piece, which was like
Oh, I
cherry
know.
on top. I love that.
But how
Yeah.
about the fact that she took Austin's idol and never gave it back, right?
Never. Yes.
Like, and
Yes.
then used it, and that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, she's a mama type, but she's willing to make sure she's taken care of and her cubs are taken care of, and that's what it is, man. And
Agreed.
and it just also was cool to see her play hard like that.
Yeah,
So
it was, and I
yeah,
think that's what plays more. I would agree more with what you have here from Chi Chi, and what the fans at least have voted for Chi Chi versus Julie, because Chi Chi here. Okay, so just explain to you a little bit more when we're looking at the Myers Briggs. You can see the only difference between them is the T versus the F. F's
okay.
are more feelers. T's are more thinkers. ESTJs, this is going to relate back to Bruce's type ESTJ, but also a little bit to D's as well. Their dominant function type is TE, which is extroverted thinking. These are going to what I was describing for D as being somebody who's really good at organizing others. Both like ESTJs and ESFJs are very good at that. It's just they use different superpowers to do superpowers. So like T on
I
the
get what you're saying. Yeah.
you know, T's on the ESTJ side, they're going to be using influence versus F's are going to be using feelings. And I agree with you. Like, I think that she was playing, it's like she's a perfect mix between the ESFJ and ESTJ type, where she was playing into like the feelings and emotions with
Right.
Austin as far as getting that idol, but she was thinking. She was really thinking, and she was not willing to like let her feelings get in the way of using it strategically. So I do see her more on the ESTJ side. What I also think is very interesting is that they pegged her as a 6 week five, but I actually agree more with her being more a core one, which deals a bit more with the
What's a 6 wing five?
So 6.5 is going to be someone very similar to the Brandons of the world.
Right.
That's someone who relies on their six pack. They rely on their tribe. They rely on the people around them. They create. They're trying to work within a structure, like a set structure of people, which I think is a part of Julie. But I think that more than that, and you can see that's a part of Chi Chi as well.
Yeah.
That's her mind type. But I think that she's more of a core one, where ones are dealing more with the aspect of not that she's angry, but they deal more in their body. They're more
Right.
of a body type. And ones are conscientious, they're ethical, they have a very strong sense of right and wrong. They're teachers and crusaders, they're advocates for change. And the one wing two specifically is called the advocate. And they're
Okay.
well meaning that they're like well organized, orderly, and they try to maintain high standards as well too. And they're very discerning, very wise, very noble. And I think that we get that more from Julie versus her sixes, and I'm a six. Sixes can spiral a lot into anxiety versus I don't think Julie let that part of her get to her too much. She was very much more focused in on wanting to like do things the right way, you
Sure.
know, for herself and for
I can see that.
her alliances. So I agree with what you have here with Chi Chi.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot more.
Yeah, and I think Chi Chi's got so much on there because she used to be like a princess, like
Yeah,
and a warrior princess. So like they probably have gone back to the Dragon Ball phase to make
true.
this, or they're looking at the Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Super phase and condensing it all.
They probably
So
are. They definitely
yeah,
are. Yeah,
yeah.
that's so cool. Love that your dog is named Chi Chi. Is that the correlation of the characters here? Yeah,
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah.
love that. Okay, cool. Well,
I had to
I
I
agree
kept
with
the door closed so she didn't come running in.
oh my goodness. Well, we love when our pets, you know, mirror our fandoms.
Oh,
Um,
I know.
let's go to another. This was I really enjoyed this next person on our screen that we're gonna talk about here, Caleb. Um I can't and I'm sorry, I don't know why Survivor just was all over my feed for Halloween, but I have to shout out before we go too deep that Caleb also had a very top tier Halloween costume. I think it was last year where it was him and somebody else who was not a part of this. Do you know what I'm talking about? Who's part of the
I
Survivor
I
fandom?
think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
He was Michael Jackson,
Oh yeah.
before before the changing in his skin, and his friend who's white was after. It was hilarious. I can't get over it. And whenever I see his hair this way, I that's all I think
You
about.
think of that every time. Caleb's the goat for that, man.
He's so crazy. But
Oh
yes,
man.
tell us more about why you related him to am I gonna say this right? Vegeta?
Vegeta.
Vegeta, my bad. Vegeta.
Yeah. So Vegeta is probably one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
And uh if you look at Vegeta's arc, it's very, very long, but it's like he has a lot of pride. And I wrote down strategic depth and an evolution of, from villain to anti-hero.
Yeah.
And that is very similar to Caleb as far as like Caleb was on his P's and Q's.
Yes.
And people I've heard people saying, oh, salesman and this and that, but it was like he was constantly talking, constantly making different moves, and
Mhm.
that can relate to Vegeta because
Oh,
Vegeta is one behind Goku,
yeah.
meaning that Goku would go Super Saiyan, then Vegeta would go Super Saiyan.
Right.
Goku would go, Super Saiyan 2, then Vegeta would go Super Saiyan 2.
Yeah.
And so I think I related him being like Vegeta to him just being one step behind the game,
Right.
right? Where he was catching up, and then push back, catching up, and push back.
Yeah.
And he did such a good job navigating the game, even voiding out those 12 votes,
Yeah.
which is what I would consider whenever Vegeta was what's that called? Magically changed by Babidi and given that M, and then he had to break past that, and he was one of the only people to kind of get through that phase on his own.
Yes.
I think that's the same thing. When he got all those 12 votes, he did it
Mhm.
on his own, pulling that safeguard, and then lived to see another day. Same thing with Vegeta. Very powerful character,
Yes.
very known character, very well known characters, which is Caleb is very well known. One of the first in the new era to ever do something big like that.
Hell yeah.
And I say, Prince of Saiyan. He's got a lot of Saiyan pride, and that's the same thing with Caleb. He loves himself, and he's that golden retriever. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's like,
It's perfect. It's so
yeah.
cool. I think that the piece that really ties together their profiles here and what you just described is going to be their Enneagram 3. You can see Caleb's more of a 3 wing 2. That's called the charmer. Or the like, yeah, the charmer, and then Vegeta
Spot
is
on.
the professional of the 3-way 4. That just means that they if they're not in their core house of 3, they often visit their neighbor 2 or 4 the most. But talking about the 3 aspect, Enneagram 3s come from the heart type and or the heart, yeah, they're heart types.
Yeah.
They're self-assured, attractive, charming,
Yep.
ambitious, competent, energetic. They can also be status conscious and highly driven for advancement, diplomatic and poised, but can also be overly concerned with what others think of them. So, at their best, self
You're
accepting.
you're literally like, that's Caleb.
Yes, you see, it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
they really can work a room, and that's very much like what I felt like Caleb gave. Like, he had this kind of charisma about him that he was trying to wield. But I agree that sometimes when it comes to threes, they can, I don't know, they can be just too, what did they used to call him? Like, I think even in the preseason, people recognized that he was going to just have too much attention on him.
Right.
He
Right.
was-
Almost like Say from
Yes,
season 48. Yeah.
yes, thank you. Where it's like you you won't make it to the end because people are going to automatically peg
Right.
you as a threat, for better or for worse. It's like he just had too much stickiness to him. He couldn't like go under the radar enough to be able to like three stand out. That's just who they are,
Yeah.
And so that very very much aligns with Caleb. As far as like the Myers Briggs go, I think it could be a toss up here. I have
Sure.
ESTP here. I wonder what you think about this. ESTJ again is going to be that Bruce type, where they are directors, like my dad. But ENTPs, they're called the debaters, inspired problem solvers who challenge tradition, devil's advocates, witty and quick conversationalists, inventors who look to improve their surroundings. I can see that with
There's
Kate.
some truth there.
You know,
Whenever Caleb was sent to our beach to raid our beach, he pulled each one of us aside
yeah,
and decided who he was going to give the
yeah,
advantage to, which I think was being able to walk away at tribal at any point. But yeah, and that was very debater like or diplomatic of him to do,
sure,
is to say, let's pull you aside and do this.
yeah.
So I definitely could see I could see it being pretty close, but right, you're right. It's kind of like,
It could go either way.
yeah, it
I
can go either way.
3 is spot on. The 3 is like that. I think there's the tying force between him and Vegeta, and
Yeah,
yeah, I love this comparison. I think that's very similar. Cool.
man.
Where are we going next? I think we've got. Oh, so we're done. We're
Yeah,
done
we
with top.
finished up. We could pick a 48er if you want, or we can,
Whatever
yeah,
you like to do. What maybe we just pick like who do you want to talk about for 40? Who's like your not a, I won't say fave because everybody's a fave, but who's
right,
the most
right.
interesting character for us to like just hone in on real quick?
Yeah, I think that I like Kyle a lot. I think Kyle is he's a really nice guy, but he's listening in to a lot of stuff and he's working with Camilla and making moves,
Okay.
as like it's weird because I can't really pinpoint a type of player for Kyle.
Yeah.
Um, as far as like Survivor
Target.
goes, not for Dragon Ball Z, but
Mhm.
I think he's playing a really interesting game, and I think they have to watch that dynamic of Camilla and Kyle before
Mhm.
they get too far together,
Oh,
because that
yeah.
could be very dangerous as far as him or her getting to the final three. So
Yeah.
I think I put him as Kid Gohan, and I said balance. Kid Gohan balances raw potential, which is what I see from Kyle. And remember, we're not done with the season yet.
Or not. We'll
And so
see.
that's why I was like, man, Kid Gohan has raw potential. He literally, which is pretty massive, has to save humanity with one Kamehameha. You know what I mean? Like, and so, but there's a lot of potential. in the kid because he's taught by Piccolo. He's got mentors like his father and Master Roshi that are around him. So it's like that's what I see from Kyle too. He's got a lot of great people around him. He's blending in. People are telling him things. He's listening. He's not too forward, and you know he's doing a lot of critical thinking with his information that he's got, and then he's relaying it back to Camilla,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is kind of what Kid Gohan is doing. Whenever he gets information, he's trying to test it out and see if it works and apply it, and he'll be there all night if he has to work on a technique.
Yes.
Um, what else did I say? Uh, Looks like a bench warmer until he Kamehameha waves, you know,
Oh,
does
yeah.
a Kamehameha, right?
Yep.
And and that's what Kyle I think will do if people don't cut him out. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Will, and we're able to see it, right, on the confessionals, but it's so interesting, like, I bet it's probably trippy as a player who was out there with him to see, like, what the confessionals are, like, what him and Camilla were conspiring. Yeah, he only has 1 vote here 'cause we're right in the middle of
Right,
the
we're in the beginning for
but,
sure.
he is pegged as an ISFP. I completely disagree with this, and I completely agree with what you have here as him as
Yeah.
Son Gohan. This is gonna relate the most back to, from a character from your season, Drew. Drew
Yep.
Basile was an INTP 5, and, again, INTPs are the intellectuals. They are the ones that have a flair for inventiveness and analytical, need intellectual challenges to feel fulfilled. I definitely think that it's very fun. Like, it's not even just like a
Right.
game thing. It's a very fun thing for him and Camilla to, like, unite in this way and to be able to, like, come up with these plans and, like,
Right.
execute on them with, like, strategicness. Like, I think that that is a strength, and that's something that is a strength of INTPs and 5s mixed combined. So, I see it for Kyle. I root for him. I worry for him that, like, somebody's gonna pick up on it sooner versus later, and I wonder who they'll go for between the 2. It seems like
Yeah.
I really thought that it was really smart of them to not vote. It sucked that they voted out Cedric. I was sad to lose
Yeah.
Say in the same night, but I do think it was smart that they did not vote Shaheen out because that would have exposed, the
Oh,
game is
100%. Now, and that's the thing is they are critical thinking like
yes,
crazy.
yes,
Like, I think that is the dynamic duo that we shall see where it goes,
yeah,
and we shall see how it blossoms. Um, if I'm looking at like from Kid Gohan all the way to adult Gohan, like his arc is crazy. You know, he does all these amazing things, and he pretty much he does beat Cell. His dad beats Cell, but he beats Cell initially. Um, and which again could represent a win. I don't know. You know, that could be like Kyle or even Camilla getting to the end and at least
yes,
getting to the end. We don't know because it's still airing, but I think that's kind of like the similar thing. Is Kid Gohan is pushing and willing to get to the end. I
yeah,
mean, I don't know if you can flash a picture or whatever, you
please,
know, but at the whenever Kid Gohan's arm is all shredded up and he's like holding a, I mean, that's what I think it's gonna take. So you might have to look up. Yeah, right there. Like that's what I think Kyle's gonna look like at the end of
yeah,
the season. You know what I mean? Like if he makes it there, because I feel like he's gonna have to win the challenges. He's gonna have to really
mhm,
use that critical thinking with Camilla, and then he's gonna have to cut her out.
mhm,
You know what I mean? And that's exactly what you're seeing here with Kid Gohan is like it's just him. His father has passed away at this time, and
mm,
he has to fight on his own. And at the very end, his father like appears in his head and
wow,
shoots the Kamehameha away with him. And I think that it just shows like you have to give it all up, everything, mind, body, soul, and spirit. And I
mhm,
think Kyle's willing to do that, and that's
yes.
where I see their correlation to do.
I love it. It's
Yep,
so fun, like, just to see, because I mean, yeah, thank you. Thank you for this. I completely agree. I wanna, like,
love it.
zoom out a bit because it's just so fun to hear you talk about, like, how Survivor relates to just these epic, epic
Yeah,
arcs because it's so true. Like, I think that's why, we have been Survivor fans for so long because it relates to so much of the best storylines that we've ever seen these
yeah, yeah.
complete. I mean, even when just what you're talking about with Kyle, like losing his arm, like that could mean losing Camilla, you know, like that could mean so many different things. And it's
Right.
like, I know it's reality TV, but I love that the producers are like leaning into the epicness of it all because it can really, I mean, I've often imagined Survivor, like, what if this was like a fantasy TV show? Like, it's just,
Right.
it has enough there to be that. So I really, really do appreciate you like taking us
Yeah.
through this. And
Well, my final say on all this is
yeah.
just that Survivor and Dragon Ball Z for me are one and the same. Dragon Ball Z was empowering for me as a young kid, and it helped me just realize the stories of people trying, to come out of weakness and pain to something strong and something bigger. And I
Mhm.
think that's the thing. That's the same thing with Survivor is you start off basic, you don't have much, and then you start to accumulate more and more and more over time. That makes you a better player, better person. So we could go for hours and hours and hours
Because
about this, but I think to wrap it up, they're a beautiful colliding world, and I think we made a pretty good deal out of it. So
we did. I really
yeah,
do.
yeah,
Love this. I can't wait to like rewatch it back. And also just like I have to hop back into my Dragon Ball Z bag. Like I haven't watched it in so many years.
yeah, yeah.
Now I'll have this context to be able to like layer it on with. For
It's
anybody,
gonna be fun.
yeah. Anybody who's like really interested, make sure like in the comment section you drop your own person like Dragon Ball Z character that you think you're aligned to, or your favorite Survivor character that you feel like you're aligned to, and maybe we'll spotlight them in a future character of the week on Hot Nerd Net. Really just excited to have you, Sifu. Thank you so much for giving us your time and your thoughts and just like
Yes.
your past and just like even just anecdotes from Survivor 45 makes it all
Yes.
the more special and hopefully have you back here whenever you want to nerd out about something new.
Yes.
Yeah, and for everybody else, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and until the next time, stay nerdy. Bye,
All
y'all.
right. Bye.